Welcome to Innovating Clinical Trials, the podcast designed for clinical research professionals eager to deepen their understanding of clinical trials through concise, insightful segments. Join your hosts, Liam Eves and Ted Trafford, as they uncover the core issues in clinical research, reflect on the industry, and challenge conventional wisdom.
And knowing what you've obviously got a wealth of experience here, Nick, and like what are some of the things that study teams don't really understand or don't get about feasibility, about recruitment, about your area that you wish they did? Is there any particular things that you'll find yourself constantly iterating, or perhaps individuals and teams will be like, oh my God, I never knew that? It's a bit of a shock to them.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is feasibility is so much more than just site feasibility or site selection, right? That I cringe every time somebody just thinks that's what it's all about. And again, going back to one of my original points, it's about perspective, right? And so it's like, so if all you know from a feasibility standpoint is feasibility questionnaires, CDAs, and selection, okay, maybe that's all you've been exposed to. But feasibility really, when it's done right, is an end-to-end process. We get involved at the time of study concept, and we work our way through that to protocol optimization and working with the teams to look at patient and site burden that's within the protocol. We'll do an evaluation of the countries that we might be targeting to include and see, what are the pros and cons and of including certain countries, and also the potential patients based off of incidence rates and other things. We'll also move from there into building our site list, using internal intelligence to help us understand, okay, are these going to be the right sites for the given study or not? Do they have the experience, at least on paper, that we expect them to have? And then moving into site selection and eventually enrollment modeling and tracking. So feasibility in a true form is a very wide scope and spectrum of activities. Secondly, strong relationships build strong feasibility projections. I think this is very much something that is lost nowadays because we want to be very data digital oriented and put everything into an application and just let it spit it out kind of thing. But the more that we can build relationships with our internal stakeholders within the farm and CRO to glean the information that we need to glean from them to help inform our strategy, the more that we can build strong relationships with the sites to help us have better confidence in the site's abilities, but then also to reciprocate that, it's for the site to want to participate and have confidence in the sponsor. That all plays into it, right? Because we need to have strong site investigator engagement in order to be successful in the study. So building those relationships, and it starts with feasibility. If in many cases feasibility is the first contact is with the site, right? If there's no prior relationship, and so the feasibility team just can't send out these robotic spamish type of emails and for as an invitation for a study. I haven't sent out an outreach email for a couple of years now, but when I used to do this, I always tried to make it as personal as I could. If I somehow knew the investigator knew something about them, I would add that into the letter, right? Now it's all about just do a mass mailing and send it out. They don't care about spam filters or anything. It's like, come on, be smart about this, right? If you can do some testing, some market type research testing on how well your outreach is performing, whether it's subject line testing, email content testing, things like that, to help improve your response rates and engagement rates. All of that's so important. But again, everything is about fast, and getting it through and using templates and following processes. And now processes are important, of course, but at the same time, you have to have the flexibility and willingness to be engaged. And the more you can be inviting, the more it'll reciprocate back to you in regards to success for the study.
I think that's so critical. I mean, it sort of builds on what you were mentioning before around that transparency and communication. Right, is that we do our best for people that we have a relationship with inherently, because I think that's part of human nature, right? So as you say, is that if we've got good communication, good transparency, and also a good relationship with those individuals, the likelihood is that even if they can't deliver the study and what they've said, they're probably more likely to communicate that to you than if you don't know them and they can just hide behind the virtual email, an email, right? That's a great point. If you could go back in time and impart some wisdom on your younger self about this area, this aspect that's obviously hugely complicated, what would you say?
I first started conducting site feasibility assessments in 2008. I was a project manager for a CRO, and I didn't have any direction. I was just told, it's like given an objective, like contact some sites, see if they're interested in the study, find out how many patients they can enroll in a year. Okay. And from that point, I just figured out, okay, well, this is probably what's going to be important, and built my own way around that. But one of the things I didn't realize at the time, now it's more obvious today than it was back then. I didn't recognize the value in the data that I was collecting, and how it could be used to inform future studies. I also didn't recognize the impact of my flurry of emails that I sent out each day that it had on sites, and that mine was probably just one of countless others that they received as well. Right? I, there was one study coordinator that I would contact a lot, and she wrote back one time. It's like, "Wow, I bet you just sent a few hundred emails out today, right?" And I'm like, not picking up on the sarcasm that was in that email, and I'm like, and I responded back, "Yes, I did," and blah, 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 right? And I'm so excited, and it's the funny thing is too, I can dish out the sarcasm. I don't always recognize it, but it but yeah, it was. um, so we lots of times in the feasibility team have pressure to meet certain deadlines,
Mm.
right? And so what is that? That trickles down to the sites, like, hey, come on, come on, come on, come on! I need that information now. So we have to be patient, right? We have to, if we do things right, if we try to establish a connection, a relationship, if we can, the more that we can understand the data, and then also to track your metrics, right? Not just the data from the study and enrollment piece, but the metrics in regards to the process that you're doing. So, like, how long did it take you to get from point A to B to point B to C, and so on and so forth? How can you improve upon that, right? What were your challenges, your stumbling blocks? Because you know the main thing, right, that we have is, and I again kind of presented this, it was that this was glaring to me. So in the early 2000s, there was a stat that said 80% of studies are not meeting their enrollment goals. The same statistic applies today, right? It's ridiculous, right? Again, all this new data, all this new technology, but we're still stuck in the mud. Why aren't we moving forward? And I don't know. I can only surmise, maybe we're not being smart enough with how we're doing things. Maybe we think we're moving forward, but in the end, we're stuck in our old ways and think it has to be done in a certain way. And so, until we can really take a step back, think about, okay, what is it that we're doing? What is and is not working? That until we actually do that, I don't know if we're actually going to make any progress.
It's very. I love what you was getting at there, Nick. In terms of like, we almost need to understand the feasibility landscape and the process and the time it takes to open and return information. It's better. It's better in my mind, at least. It's better to have information that's as accurate as possible and have that come late than inaccurate, hugely inaccurate, and come in early. I totally agree with you in the sense that something needs to change, a reimagination needs to occur. And I think that the part of the problem, like any industry, is that we have a habit of adding rather than subtracting within our, and because we are a group of highly intelligent individuals, we tend to, I think, over-engineer things when in actual fact the smart thing is to remove some of these factors. And maybe, there's a reason why we need more sites now, and it's because the trial is more complex, right? Medicine and so on and so forth. And I think that, with that same vein, is that we're asking probably too many questions at the start, when in actual fact we should be trying to strip back some of those protocols to as minimum as possible, and then building from there as a starter, because everything rolls downhill, right?
Nick, listen, this has been fantastic. Really appreciate your time today, and this has been really fascinating learning from you on this topic.
Thank you, both of you. I really appreciate the invitation to be on here and contributing to this podcast. This is first time I've been invited to one of these, and actually I haven't been able to present in a long time before this year, and I'm trying to get it all out. And it's good. Yeah, I love it.
It's great. It really is great. Nick, where can people reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me. Yeah.
Excellent. We'll make sure we tag you on that, and we'll look forward to another session, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. Still more to talk about.
Amazing.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Bye now.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.